One team playing their first home game, the other at their home away from home. Hello and welcome to Jack Edwards Reserve, where it's Oakleigh Cannons taking on Heidelberg United in another Hellenic derby, the second in the space of 2 weeks. A minute's silence for the fallen Eastern Lions head coach Jimmy Williams. A sombre moment to start the night. Jimmy Williams, Eastern Lions, very decorated head coach, had a long career in Victorian football and was an icon of that club. 3 championships over the last decade to take them from obscurity to the pinnacle of Victorian football. His loss is sorely felt across the league and across the state. I'm Josh Parrish. Damir Kulash is with me. First, a word on Jimmy Williams. I mean, what an underdog story the Eastern Lions have been, just so tragic.
Yeah, a guy who I think speaks volumes about the high regard that he was held in within the Victorian football community. He was also a former Heidelberg United player in the 80s, as well as a legend in Green Gully. And, I mean, his tenure at Eastern Lions stretches back to the mid-2000s from memory, and what he was able to achieve with that club, particularly in 2019. You looked at the promotion picture coming into that season. The Bulleen Lions and Langwarrin had the highest budgets in the league, and Eastern Lions had quite a modest budget. A lot of young players were able to get off to a fast start and never really looked back. So, you know, I guess if there's... You know, the one good thing about his career towards the end was that he was able to achieve the pinnacle of taking that small club to the highest league in Victorian football, as you mentioned, and also win NPL 2 Coach of the Year, which is voted by his peers. So I guess you can't have any higher respect for someone like Jimmy Williams than that.
Well, whatever happens to the Eastern Lions in this campaign, they will play with the commitment, the dedication and the togetherness that Jimmy Williams taught, and the culture that he brought to that club is really unparalleled. So tonight's game then, the Oakleigh Cannons make one change from the team that lost in heartbreaking fashion against Avondale last week. Captain Tom Matthews is suspended after his controversial red card in the opening minutes of the second half. Ryan Pachkowski comes in to play left back. Out of position a little bit for Ryan Pachkowski. He can play there. I know for a fact that he doesn't like playing there, but he's an excellent physical option to have up and down that left flank. Hamish Miller moves over to play in Tom Matthews' right back role. For Heidelberg United, one change. Sean Ellis comes out of the squad due to injury. Jackson Leno comes in to take his place. They start in a 4-4-2 shape with Takeru Okada, the Wollongong Wolves import. Outstanding contributor to NPL in New South Wales over the last couple of years. Starting on the left-hand side, he's my player to watch tonight, Damir.
Yeah, first look of Okada myself, and I'm very excited. He comes in with high raps. He did also trial prior to the A-League season with the Western Sydney Wanderers, so it's interesting to see these players that do well in New South Wales, see what sort of transition they make into Victorian football. Of course, his compatriot, Tasuki Sakaya, was outstanding in his season and a bit for Avondale.
Here's Ruben Way battling for this ball. Joe Knowles wins the throw-in. Flicked on by Tyson Holmes. And away by Feta Hagic. Way. Kublai gets a foot in. Falls slightly awkwardly for Fowler, but Jackson Leno manages to clear, and now Okada for Theodoropoulos. Captain Ruben Way takes over. A touch for Tom Strickland there, number 11, coming in from Queensland in the off-season. A lovely little back heel from Theodoropoulos, and Way can swing it in now. Leno's at the back post, but Nick Feely was off his line quickly.
Yeah, I thought Feely had quite a strong start to last campaign. Of course, tough act to follow. John Honos was at the Oakleigh Cannons for a number of years, where he established himself as one of the league's most consistent shot stoppers. But as he was either side of 40, I think, he decided to hang up the boots. And Feely, after experiencing relegation with Pascaval, was one of their few standouts that campaign and deservedly got a move to Oakleigh, and I think he's been outstanding since.
A little bit inside intel from the Oakleigh Cannons backroom staff. When Nick Feely came back after the long off-season we had in Victoria, they couldn't believe how good shape he was in. Apparently he's dropped about 10 kilos. He's nearly half the man he used to be, so should be even more spry with those diving saves this season. Oscar Dillon taking the free kick. Of course, recently of Western United in the A-League. He's played a lot in Queensland as well. He gets another touch on the ball here. Weighs header only as far as Tyson Holmes. Couldn't find Knowles. He gets a second bite at it, and again, the pass comes up short. Milan Roberts intercepting, and Way eventually gets it upfield. Strickland trying to play Lino in behind. And Thurtell is ruled offside from that excellent Jacob Eliopoulos pass. He's played in Cyprus at quite a high level, Eliopoulos. Big raps on him coming into the season.
Yeah, he was at Apoel Nicosia, who are the giants of Cypriot football, who of course have had a number of Champions League campaigns under their belt, most notably in 2012 when they reached the quarterfinals of the competition.
Pachkowski heads into touch.
Interesting, Dillon, following his release from Western United, spent a bit of time at the Gold Coast Knights, who were home to last week's match winner at this ground in a game involving Heidelberg and South Melbourne in Harry Sawyer.
Pachkowski, or Patchy as he's affectionately known. In fact, it was Joe Guest winning that tackle.
I think that happens often. I mean, the foul is in the final third, and referees generally tend to blow it there. Often guilty of that myself as a referee, where you don't allow play to continue, and there might have potentially been an advantage there, but ultimately the correct call is made with the free kick given.
Dillon. Kubele. Back to Miller. Heidelberg trying to keep a reasonably high line here. It is one of the smaller pitches in the NPL. Jack Edwards Reserve. It can get quite tight, quite physical here. Way. Kubele's header falls for Jackson Lino, and the foul goes against Tyson Holmes there. He tried to pull out, not in time.
Yeah, smart play by Lino, who is a bit of an unknown to, I guess, most followers of Victoria's top flight. He did spend some time at Springvale White Eagles in NPL 2. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of impact he can make in this Heidelberg United starting 11 following Ellis's injury.
We started with Fetahagic. Way. Stricken leaves it for Okada. Cuts it across the box, and it couldn't find its intended target. Thurtell lays it off for Holmes. Over the top for Joe Knowles. Appeals for offside from the Heidelberg bench. Last touch off Ruben Way, and it's behind for a corner. Protests continue from the Heidelberg faithful down to our right, Damir, but it's a Oakleigh corner, and they can be dangerous off set pieces.
They definitely can, particularly with the likes of Eliopoulos, Pachkowski, even Thurtell can certainly make a presence of himself in the box. Thought it was great work by Eliopoulos in defence. Very calming presence to prevent that Heidelberg attack. Swung
in by Knowles to the front post. Eliopoulos with the touch. And just about gathers it, does Chris Theodorides.
Shades of last week here on Sunday, where, of course, Heidelberg fell behind, and ultimately it was their demise that South Melbourne goal, which just sneaked in.
Guest. It's panic stations in the Heidelberg defence there. Instead of a long high ball, it was a driven low one, and they couldn't deal with it. It's Joe Guest popping up on the left flank. Back for Holmes. Touch for Decker. Now Guest in for Thurtell. Tries the back heel, but couldn't make contact at the front post. That was a nice little move there. Good combination play down the left. The roaming Joe Guest, who got on the score sheet last week in the loss to Avondale. Big switch for Jackson Leno here. 1v1 with Pachkowski, and the whistle goes against him for handball.
I guess if you look at both starting 11s, Oakleigh Cannons coming into the season the more settled of the two teams, given that a large chunk of their starting 11 was here last year. You think to the likes of Feely, Miller, Pachkowski, Portelli on the bench, Holmes in midfield, Decker, Knowles, who had a fantastic start to life in Victorian football at the beginning of last year. From memory, he did score in this fixture. Guest, of course, has been a fantastic presence for the club since his arrival in 2019.
2019 gold medalist, no less. Player of the season.
Yeah, they've had a good track record with number 10s.
Decker's flick. Thurtell, the bounce was awkward for him, and Roberts hooks it away. Strickland's pass misdirected, and Knowles takes over. Tyson Holmes now. It's been ever present in that midfield so far. Tyson Holmes, he's gone on the ball loads, and that's not someone you want to let have too much time on the ball. Too many touches.
And for those that might not be aware, he actually spent the second half of last season back home in Queensland, up at the Gold Coast, where I think he was teammates with Mitch Cooper of Hume City. He is one of the most decorated footballers at Queensland State League level.
And that's Holmes with the ball again. Pachkowski getting forward from left back. He's got Thurtell in the middle. Can't keep the cross in play. It's a goal kick.
Of course, a fixture in the Bentley Greens midfield over a number of years and a couple of championships to his name, Tyson Holmes. In fact, I think it was 3 championships, if I stand corrected, 2015, 2017 and 2019.
Very decorated player with the Bentley Greens.
And potentially one of the best footballers we've had outside the A-League in the last decade. I did mention he was a pillar of consistency and success in Queensland with the Sunshine Coast Fire back in the day when they were one of the state's best football teams. Of course, times have changed, and the likes of Lions, Olympic, and more recently Peninsula Power and Gold Coast Knights have, shattered that domination by them and Brisbane Strikers before them.
Kubalay out to Joe Knowles. Takes on McAuliffe. Contact between Knowles and Dominic Fowler there.
Thought Knowles was looking for it there. He seemed to initiate contact himself, and it's interesting to see that both him and Decker have switched sides now. Your old Churches League buddy, of course, Wade Decker.
Joe Knowles deflects off Malin Roberts. Drops for Kubalay. Holmes for Guest.
In terms of Wade Decker, has there been a better player in the Churches League since you've been playing there?
Oh, it's Wade Decker and Wade Decker's brothers. That's pretty much the the top talent. Knox City Churches, where... Oh, that's a terrible back pass, and Adrian Zara might go around the goalkeeper. Fantastic work from Nick Feely. A hospital back pass that was.
It's great goalkeeping by the shot stopper, formerly of Perth Glory. He definitely made a big presence there. Despite the KG loss, he's definitely made himself big and ultimately came to his side's rescue. But as he said, quite a risky hospital ball, and Zara almost profited there.
Strickland goes down under Eliopoulos' challenge and wins the free kick. Restarted with Fowler. And out to McAuliffe at right back.
I think Zara's one of a few, only slight number of Victorians in the Heidelberg 11. I think him, Fedorides, Fedoropoulos, and I'm not too sure if there's anyone else, really. Because most of the others tend to be either from overseas or interstate. Including Mikhailov, who was just on the ball.
He's up the flank now. It goes back to Dom Fuller. It was very impressive in a loss to South Melbourne last week. Ruben Way. Okada turns this way and that. Marched closely by Hamish Miller. This way for Theodoropoulos, but the 1-2 is blocked. Now Zara. It's almost a 4-1-3-2. You describe it from Heidelberg, almost a diamond.
And I have to ask you about Zara. Are you surprised at the way that he's reinvented himself from a winger, essentially, to a holding midfielder? I think that transition started in the 2019 NPL campaign, and he hasn't looked back since.
McAuliffe. Pachkowski getting his ankles clipped. He's done well in the one-on-one duel again. Yeah, Adrian Zara, I mean, he's certainly got the kind of stocky build that you need to play central midfield sometimes in NPL Victoria. It is a very physical league, but I think he's got a little bit more attacking freedom this season with Fuller playing that more defensive role. You know, certainly Harry Noon was the attacking midfield focal point for Heidelberg in the past, but it seems as if George Katsakis is releasing the shackles a little bit this season for Adrian Zara.
Well, he's got plenty of stamina to him, man. You're right. Fala can play in that number 6 role, and Zara can be the 8 box-to-box. And I guess if you're a Heidelberg United fan, the exciting thing is not only have you got Okada and his creativity, but you've also got Dusan Boshniak to come back.
That's gone straight to Joe Guest. And Theodorides positioned himself well. That's 2 moments where we've almost seen an open net. That's a bad tackle from Joe Knowles, and he'll get a telling off. What did you make of that challenge?
Yeah, I thought he went in a bit too aggressively there and overzealous, Knowles, and ultimately it is a free kick. Referee Jonathan Brera, I think, well within his rights not to dish out a card. Still quite early on, and I don't think it was as malicious of a challenge as perhaps some of the Heidelberg coaching staff and supporters thought.
Back to Feely. I don't think Ruben Way really needed to head that ball, to be honest.
What's his nickname again? The Champ, isn't it? He's been ever present in his starting 11 following his move to Olympic Village back in 2015 after a successful season up in Queensland, his home state, with Olympic FC, where he was a part of their FA Cup team that reached the round of 16 in the inaugural season of the competition.
If I'm not mistaken, Bentley Greens had interest in him last year, but he opted to stay at Olympic Village.
Yeah, and he's another player who's somewhat reinvented himself because he was always, as it will stay with play.
Knowles with a lovely ball for Wade Decker. Lays it back and it's off target for Thurtell. Again, frustrated that the pass doesn't come right to his feet. Knowles again. Runs out of room. And Okada. Well, that was a tough one for Tom Strickland. He's done well to keep it alive, to be honest. He's McAuliffe. Wins the free kick. Joe Knowles has to be careful with repeated fouling. He's certainly caught the referee's attention so far, if not going into the book.
Look, correct call again. It wasn't, the most aggressive of fouls, a soft one, and I think got no issue with play being allowed, or, Knowles not getting a talking to. But yeah, back to Ruben Way. He's another one that's really reinvented himself because he used to be a attacking winger, left winger, you could say, who's now turned into Heidelberg's go-to man as left back following the retirement of fan favourite and long-standing Burgers servant Les Dumbalis.
Kubalay over the top. McAuliffe for Jackson Leno. Steps over it, and Pachkowski doesn't need a second invitation, but a bit of a mix-up there between he and Joe Knowles. Communication wasn't quite right. Thurtell would have been offside. So Patchy goes after his own header. Roberts does well. Drops in an inviting position. Again, the Burgers fans groaning with disgruntlement at the failure to clear their lines there.
Yeah, of course, a bit of a new look defence as well. For so long, the Heidelberg backbone was marshalled by Stephen Pace and Luke Biles. Pace, of course, now on the Burgers bench as an assistant to George Katsakis following Jeff Oliver's move to the Melbourne City coaching staff, where I think he acts as a goalkeeping coach for much of the club's academy.
It'll be Pachkowski with the free kick. Away by Ruben Way, in fact. And no one put their name on that. Strickland couldn't take advantage.
Yeah, I think Miller did well in the end, but he got a bit lucky that Strickland was quite indecisive, because certainly let him in there, and it could have been costly, but ultimately did well to make amends.
Dylan coming in strong, not once but twice. Way. And that's a late tackle from Dom Fowler. Tyson Holmes was straight in there to make a point. And so was Johnny Barrero with the yellow card.
Yeah, and I think the Heidelberg supporters aren't too happy with that one, as you'd expect, but from our vantage point, and we're quite close here, I thought that it was a late challenge and well within rights to dish out a yellow card. Of course, Tyson Holmes isn't the fondest player for Heidelberg United fans. Of course, a number of years playing for rivals like South Melbourne and Bentley Greens, and I believe he did score a goal that sent Bentley to, or it might have been an equalizer in a semi-final against Heidelberg United back in 2019, when Heidelberg finished top of the table but missed out on the grand final, which was, of course, contested between the Greens and Avondale.
Well, Tyson Holmes has been a thorn in the side of any NPL Victoria side that he's faced. Zara over the top. Lino went down. Nothing in that for me, Damir.
Yeah, no appeals from Lino either, which is a good indicator as to whether there was anything in there. And, you know, one of the great things about the fact that we're on this side of the ground is we've got such a close vantage point, not only to the fans but to both benches, although there is a considerable gap between them. And you've also got some of the two most experienced coaches in Victorian football in Chris Taylor and George Katsakis.
Oh, that's a classy turn from Holmes. Thurtell's in there. It's over the bar. Took a touch. It'll be a corner. What a bit of magic from Tyson Holmes. He's been best on ground for me so far.
It was that old Bentley 1-2 in Holmes setting up Thurtell, and it wasn't to be. I think, don't exactly remember who the Heidelberg defender was, but he did really well to get a touch on that ball and prevented from going goalwards.
Swung in again by Guest. It's Roberts with the clearance. Miller. Guest again, up against three defenders, and the third defender does the job, Ruben Way. Theodoropoulos plays in. Ruben Way, who's continued his run forward. He's got Okada in support. A little nutmeg from Okada on Joe Guest. And he wins the free kick too.
I think Decker's also been a player that Heidelberg United have shown interest with over on a few instances, but he's played for the likes of Green Gully and Oakleigh Cannons in recent seasons, as well as starting his senior career at Northcote City.
Carter's ball in. Machkowski off his weaker right foot, away for a throw.
Of course, another permanent fixture at Oakleigh Cannons home games is one of Victoria's most credentialed photographers in Peter Saros from Smile for Peter.
Long throw from Way. Dylan's header away. Okada on the volley. That could have gone anywhere. Eliopoulos cleared with the header. Lino's ball overhit to the back post. Out harmlessly for a goal kick in the end. Brand new banking scoreboard here at Jack Edwards Reserve. It's one of the big match day upgrades. We are in the 22nd minute. 0-0 if you're just joining us, but chances for both sides. Say Oakleigh's probably edged it.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd be interested in hearing your observations of Heidelberg United last week, because you did call their game against South Melbourne. A lot of new faces, and I imagine that would have affected the end result in the end.
Yeah, it certainly did look like a side that was still settling in and getting to know each other. A lot of the runs were not being met with the right pass, and players getting frustrated with each other because they just weren't quite on the same wavelength. Holmes flicks it on. Feta Hagic away. Guest ended up stepping on the ball there. And Strickland will go for goal. Well, he's not short on confidence, the young man.
Yeah, I don't think too many of the Heidelberg fans to our right were too happy with Strickland's decision-making there. Felt that he had a couple of teammates in support that he could have utilised there. But he did see an opening and ultimately didn't get it on target. You are reminded, of course, that this is one of 6 games in NPL Victoria that are being played tonight, and we'll keep you updated with the scores from the rest of the grounds. I believe all of them are 8:30 kickoffs, bar one, and that is the Melbourne Knights and Dandenong Thunder game, which from memory commenced at 7:30.
Way's throw. Miller flicked it backwards. Eliopoulos goes back to Feely to clear. Bit of pinball at the moment. Oscar Dillon gets a solid header on it. Feta Hagic responds. As for last week, Damir, it seemed as if, firstly, the defensive setup of South Melbourne caused a lot of frustrations. A lot of players behind the ball, very, very solid in there, with the likes of Yankovic and Luke Adams repelling pretty much every attack. Kubalay evades Jackson Lino and tees up Pachkowski with the header.
I am mistaken. There was another 7:30 kickoff, and that was the South Melbourne Eastern Lions game, as well as an 8 o'clock kickoff at Green Gully Hume and an 8:15 at Bentley Green. So scoreline, progress scorelines around the grounds is Melbourne Knights have a 2-0 lead against Dandenong Thunder in the 77th minute, and it's their new Welsh import Webb who's grabbed the brace on his home debut. South Melbourne Eastern Lions is locked in at 1-1 with 14 minutes left. Harry Sawyer equalised after Giannis Georgopoulos opened the scoring for the visitors. Hume City have a 1-0 lead thanks to Josh Bingham, who from memory scored in the same fixture last season.
Guest plays it to Thurtell, who wins a throw, not a corner.
The Bentley Greens have just scored on the stroke of half-time, and they lead Port Melbourne 1-0. And Dandenong City also have a 1-0 lead in the 28th minute thanks to a Nick Kalmar penalty. And that is that fixture against St Albans Saints.
Tamir Kulash giving us around the grounds updates on this crazy Friday night here in Victoria. 6 simultaneous games at the moment. We thank you if you decided to join us, because you had a lot of choice tonight. Eliopoulos back to Nick Feely. Dillon. Tyson Holmes for Miller. Even when he mishits one, it still seems to find its target, but commentators curse that one didn't.
Hey, I had the ultimate commentator's curse last week when I was...
Ooh, that's... I think Lino maybe backed into that challenge blind, and he's absolutely taken out Kubalay here.
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of intent, but it is still careless nonetheless.
Oliver Kubalay left a little worse for wear, but that was a sickening thud we heard.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of season Kubalay has, because he has been presented an opportunity here with Matthew Fashini injured to really establish himself in the starting 11. He is a young player who we previously saw on the books of Hume City, where he had a big rap, like a few of the youngsters at Hume City at the time. And it's only really Hayden Tennant that's really stuck around from, I guess, the 2016-17 generation that Dean Hennessy promoted into the first team. There was Christian Trajewski, who from words from around the ground had a fantastic game last week on debut for Avondale, as well as the likes of the aforementioned Tennant and Karl Baricevic.
Christian Trajewski is, I think, going to be one of the outstanding additions to NPL Victoria this season. Not a lot of his final balls came off, but you can absolutely see the potential for him to do serious damage.
And I think there's a lot of good attacking midfield players in the competition, and Trajewski is just the latest of them. I think Nick Georgopoulos at Green Gully is a real talent, as is Jerry Salados at South Melbourne. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about this competition is you have so many youngsters that are in their early 20s or approaching their mid-20s that I think are more than capable of making the next step up in the professional sphere and are as good as some players that we do see playing in the A-League, but for whatever reason haven't been afforded that opportunity. And I think they've raised the standard and quality of this competition to a new level.
Roberts, that one's short as well. Thurtell sliding in, but he had nowhere to go, really. Milan Roberts was very good last week, but has started this game pretty shaky.
He's definitely got a presence to him. Very formidable looking centre-back in terms of very well built.
That's how he describes his own. Chatted to Joey Lynch of the Corner Flag in pre-season and described himself as a very physical player. I think you can tell that just by looking at the guy. Here's Adrian Zara. Fires a throw off Kubalay.
One cap for Canada, Milan Roberts.
Yes, indeed.
Who has previously played for the likes of FC Edmonton, the Richmond Kickers, and Tulsa Roughnecks. Those last two in the United States. But
that's USL, so the United States second division, and some of the team names over there are absolutely fantastic.
Born in Sierra Leone.
Punched away by Philly. Yes, Roberts did actually have interest from the Sierra Leone national team before he ended up being capped once for Canada. Strickland. Lovely passing combination this. Tom Strickland intercepted by Eliopoulos. Zara deflected and behind. And there was a shout of handball from some of the Heidelberg attackers, notably Theodoropoulos, but that was a taste of the football that George Katsakis wants his side playing this season. A couple of quick passing triangles to release an attacker, and massive opportunity there gone begging.
And going back to Roberts, we do occasionally have the odd Canadian player playing in NPL Victoria. I remember backstretching 10 years ago, the Melbourne Knights had, I think their player of the season, that campaign in 2010 was a guy called Tom Škada, who they brought over from Toronto, Croatia, and also the most famous of them, I guess, is Nate Foster, formerly of Dandenong Thunder in Dis Parish in Oakleigh.
Fowler's header. Wouldn't drop for him. You could tell he wanted to volley that one goalwards, but Kubalay sends it as far as Ruben Way. Hooks it back to Okada. Off his chest, says the referee. No handball. Takero Okada will strike. It just drifts harmlessly wide in the end.
Irrespective of whether it was a handball or not, if I'm Oakleigh Cannons, I don't want to be allowing Okada that kind of space, because he's definitely a player that can hurt you. From all the raps we've heard about him in New South Wales, where he was such a pivotal force in Luke Wilkshire's Wollongong Wolves team, it's definitely one player that you don't want to give opportunity to, because he can definitely hurt you with his creativity and talent. And I guess, we are quite lucky in Victorian football that we have had these playmakers, and not just the young Aussie kids, but also, in recent seasons, the Japanese imports, whether it's Sakaya or Konagaya, both who have departed, but definitely left their imprint at their respective clubs.
That's for sure. Konagaya, I think, is in the Greek third division now.
Third or fourth division, I struggled to recall which of the two it was, but he was terrific for Port Melbourne in terms of stabilising them and making them a team that was competing for finals football after a few disappointing seasons before that.
Sure, Okada will be looking to continue that legacy in NPL Victoria of Japanese playmakers who've done the competition so proud over the years. Thurtell for Knowles. Knowles goes around Okada brilliantly. The West Australian cuts it across. Joe gets to the back post. And it's saved by a desperate sliding challenge. Captain Ruben Way in the end.
Well, they don't call him the champ for no reason. It's a fantastic defensive effort there from Way to prevent what would have ultimately been a shot on goal, and maybe even a goal had Guest gotten a clear shot at it, but Way was there to deny him as Pachkowski, Guest prepares to take that corner.
Dinlow. Feta Hargic away. Kubalay back into the danger area. Roberts with the header. Won by Fowler, and it falls to Zara, who wanted a free kick, but he won't get one from Johnny Barrero. Way intercepts. Okada. Lino gets there first. Strickland out wide for McAuliffe. Swings it in. Pachkowski heads skywards. That drops in the box. Well, CT won't like to see a ball bouncing in the box like that, regardless of the end outcome. Feta Hargic.
Another Queenslander, Feta Hargic.
That's a late challenge from Joe Knowles.
I think it was deserved. I think that's his third or fourth foul.
He eventually goes into the book, and I think you can count his lucky stars he wasn't booked earlier.
Yeah, can't have no complaints with that one.
That's a foul against Theodoropoulos. Oscar Dillon going down under the challenge and winning the free kick. He's quite a savvy defender, Oscar Dillon.
Yeah, we saw that at West United in brief spurts. I believe he came close to joining the Altona Magic in 2019. It wasn't to be, and ultimately got that A-League gig with Western United, and I thought he held his own when he was given the opportunity. Was a bit surprised to see him get released, but Oakleigh have been the beneficiaries of that decision. He did spend a bit of time trialling with Brisbane Roar in pre-season. I guess another interesting one to watch for Heidelberg United will be Lino this campaign.
Zara chips it for McAuliffe. Needs an option centrally. Goes all the way to Okada eventually. Takeru Okada. Coming in field for Theodoropoulos. Strickland's layoff. Gets to Fowler eventually. Lovely ball. McAuliffe's cross. Lino missed it. It falls to Theodoropoulos. Blocked by Pachkowski. Lino blocked on the line. Would you believe it? It just won't go in for Heidelberg. They had 3 or 4 bites at the cherry there. They couldn't finish it off.
I think Lino had 2 of them, and it would have been quite a start to his Heidelberg United career if he managed to get the opener here. I would assume, given his last name, he is of South Sudanese origin, and if he can be half as successful as the last player of South Sudanese origin that Heidelberg United had on their books in Kenny Afu, I think he'll have a very successful career at Olympic Village. Of course, Kenny Afu, one of the storylines of the off-season was where was he going to end up, and at the end, it wasn't Altona, it wasn't Bentley, it's overseas.
Tyson Holmes chips it over the top for Joe Guest. Milan Roberts did very, very well there. Now, the Kenny Athieu transfer saga was one of the features of the NPL off-season. Eventually, he's ended up in Cambodia after links to Altona, Bentley, his old club Heidelberg. A little disappointed not to see him back, but jetting on overseas, I'm sure he'll score bag loads of goals in Southeast Asia. Lino, Strickland. Fala's ball, intercepted by Kublai. Decker. Pachkowski's throw. Decker gets it again. That one's short for Guest, but he did enough. Knowles. And Feta Hagic absolutely thumps that one into the next lot.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that one went over the fence here.
Miller, he wanted a free kick, but maybe didn't sell it hard enough. Zara. One sat up awkwardly. And one by Decker. Tom Fowler is covering and sidesteps beautifully. And it's away for Tom Strickland, who can turn and run now. Cuts it back to Lino. Shoots on goal. Peels for handball against Eliopoulos, who did try and get his hands out of the way. Not sure he managed it, but referee was charitable enough to reward the attempt. Zara. Feely up for that cross and claims it.
Of course, Oakleigh did lose their right back, Tom Matthews, to suspension for this game following his red card against Avenel last week. We have been told that one, due to a guilty plea, has been reduced from 3 games to 2 games, so he should be back for round 4.
Well, it was certainly controversial at the time, but perhaps Oakleigh didn't fancy their chances at tribunal. It was very difficult to see what was going on the broadcast.
Although that will mean that he will miss next week's big fixture again, which is against South Melbourne, correct?
Yes, indeed. Massive few weeks to start the season for the Oakleigh Cannons, who surely, given the talent in this squad, will have title aspirations.
They were definitely one of the strong starters last campaign, and if they can get their first win of the season here tonight, I'm sure they'll make a step in the right direction.
Knowles. Chips it to the back stick. Acrobatically done by Ruben Way. Knowles again, who just has this innate ability to keep running with the ball and ride challenges, and he's done it there. Joe Knowles whips it in. Thurtell! 1-0 to Oakleigh. And Joe Knowles, what a magic solo run to tee that up. Matt Thurtell gets off the mark for his new club. It's Oakleigh 1, Heidelberg 0.
It's fantastic lead-up work by Knowles, who hasn't had the best of starts to this game, given the fact that he's been yellow-carded and was struggling in terms of attacking creativity, but he's certainly a player who, when needed and when called upon, he can rise to the occasion, and he's done so there. And he's played in a fantastic ball to Fertel, who is one of the best at making those starting runs into the area and flashing the ball past the goalkeeper for the Oakleigh lead.
Well, that's what Matt Thurtell is all about. Quick one-touch passing with his back to goal, combining with his midfielders and fellow attackers, and making those darting runs, as you say, Damir, into spaces where defenders simply cannot track him. And I'm sure if we look back at that Joe Knowles run, he's covered about half the width of the field. Just kept going and kept going. Didn't give up on the play, and he's been rewarded with an assist. He's second in the space of 2 weeks.
Yeah, as noted earlier, he had a fantastic start to the 2020 season, of course, disrupted. And if we look at some of the progress scores, Dandenong Thunder have pulled the goal back to make it interesting heading into injury time. There was an 88-minute goal to the Thunder that reduces the deficit in half, and who knows, Melbourne Knights fans don't have great memories of that fixture last year where Brandon Barnes scored with basically the last kick of the game to ensure a 3-3 draw.
It's one of the outrageous games we had before the suspension of the season, and it's definitely squeaky bum time for Melbourne Knights fans now.
And as the game heads into injury time at Lakeside Stadium, South Melbourne 1, Eastern Lions 1. And in what has been quite an emotionally difficult week for the Eastern Lions, as we stick with play.
Joe Knowles intercepts that one for Theodorides and volleys it straight out of bounds. But yeah, the Eastern Lions, I mean, I think pretty much everyone had wrote them off this week. Can you imagine going out to play a high-level football game after the loss of your beloved mentor? But
yeah, particularly for a lot of that squad. They've pretty much grown up with Jim Williams, who has been a guiding force over a number of years for that club, and he's mentored and nurtured a lot of those players into senior football. I think of the Drutzes brothers and a few others there, and ultimately Jimmy Williams would be a very proud man with that result if it stays like that. A full-time score at Summer Street, and it is 2-1 to the Melbourne Knights, so they will start the campaign 2 from 2, and it's a stark contrast to the way they commenced last season, where I believe they only had, 1 point from their opening 5 games and looked defensively atrocious. Or it was actually 2 points. It was in those first 2 games where they got a draw away to Port Melbourne and then a home draw against the Dandenong Thunder. But from there onwards, it was all downhill losses to the likes of St Albans, their little sister, little cousin, whatever you want to call them. A massive defeat away at Avondale, and it wasn't looking good for them, but Steve Beveridge, give him a lot of credit. He has turned that around as Heidelberg United prepare to take a long throw in.
Yeah, it's take 2 here as Ruben Way lines up off the, rather short run up really. He doesn't have a lot of room there, but Johnny Barrera with some sorting out to do in the penalty area. As you say, Damien, Melbourne Knights, what a turnaround this season. Way hurls it towards goal. Last touch off Fetahagic, says the referee.
I guess the only thing you would add to that for the Melbourne Knights is that, we've been here before. They had a fantastic start to the season 2 years ago where Hamish Watson was banging in goals left, right and centre. Gian Albano proved to be one of the best signings of the campaign. But after a strong start under Mickey Chelina, it all went downhill, and ultimately, they missed out on finals football, and they haven't been to the finals since 2015, which for a club as distinguished and as successful in their history as Melbourne Knights, that's just not good enough. So Steve Bebic is definitely on the right track with what he's got at Summer Street at the moment.
Hamish Miller battling for that ball. Well, I got to say, I'm a bit surprised with that decision, Dummy. I felt as if Fetahagic got enough of the ball there.
Yeah, I mean,
perhaps showing his studs.
It was difficult to see from here. I thought he did get the ball. He did get a bit of the man. Whether it's the yellow card, referee had a better view than us from here, because I think we definitely had, or the backs of the challenge were against us.
Well, certainly the assistant referee was flagging for the foul, so...
Yeah, definitely. The assistant referee was the closest to it, so he might have had a little word in the referee's ear, because they are wearing electronic communication, so it is a lot easier for them to talk to one another.
Yeah, certainly got a better angle than we do. That challenge from here. It's Guest's free kick. Decker's flick. Dylan back to Pachkowski. Didn't quite get hold of that drive into the danger area. And Oscar Dillon certainly didn't get hold of that cross. Nevertheless, it's been a positive half for Oakleigh Cannons. A couple of scares here and there, a bit of a goalmouth scramble that Jackson Leno and others lining up for that chance. But
Yeah, I think Theodoropoulos was the other one, and I guess for Heidelberg United, it's a what-if moment, because had they taken advantage of those numerous opportunities that they had in quick succession, one of them at least, they would have been in the lead, and it would have been Oakleigh Cannons perhaps entering this halftime break behind. But they still have some time to turn this around, Heidelberg. Let's see if they can do it.
certainly been a very competitive match so far. Fella. And that will be the halftime whistle. So the Oakleigh Cannons go in 1 goal to the good. Matt Thurtell getting his first goal for his new club after a splendid assist from Joe Knowles. Heidelberg, as we said, had their chances, Damir, but they're going down at the break, and it's not looking great for George Katsakis' side. Still time to recover this one.
Well, I guess if you're George Katsakis, the disappointing thing is for a team that for a number of years has been one of the most lethal attacking teams in the competition. They're still scoreless in 135 minutes of football and counting. And I know there's been a lot of change over the course of the off-season, but you definitely want to be creating a few more goal-scoring opportunities against a very, stubborn Oakleigh defence. But there have been chances for him, and I guess, it wasn't quite an even half. Either team could be leading, but if there was one team that shaded it, it was definitely the Oakleigh Cannons, and some brilliant work from Knowles, set up Thurtell, and you don't want to be giving a player like Matt Thurtell that sort of opportunity in the area, because he'll punish you, and he certainly did that.
Well, stay with us. Second half coming up on the NPL Victoria Facebook and YouTube live streams. It's Oakleigh 1, Heidelberg 0. It's Super Friday here in NPL Victoria. 6 games on a Friday night across the league. The late kickoff here at Jack Edwards Reserve is, of course, the Oakleigh Cannons taking on Heidelberg United. If you are just joining us, perhaps switching over from one of the other fixtures, Oakleigh lead 1-0 thanks to a Matt Thurtell goal from a superb solo run and assist from Joe Knowles. 41st minute, the breakthrough came after a hard-fought back-and-forth touch-and-go first half, which Heidelberg threatened as well. Josh Parrish here on the call alongside Damir Kulash. Damir, what did you make of the opening 45 minutes, and what do you think Heidelberg need to do differently to get back into the game?
Well, it was quite an even first half. Both teams had the opportunities. Oakleigh played a bit of football, I guess, without creating as many clear-cut opportunities as they perhaps would have hoped for, but the key one they definitely made the most of, and ultimately I think they have a deserved lead heading into the break. What Heidelberg need to do a bit more differently is I think they need to be a bit more aggressive in attack. I think Strickland I was expecting a bit more from, so if he can have a better second half, the combination play between himself, Lino, Fedoropoulos, who I also thought, I've seen him play better, so hoping for a better half from him. And they've also got Luka Ninkovic to bring off from the bench. He's definitely one player that can hurt you if you do give him an opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And they've also got a good set-piece presence with, Roberts and Fethagic, definitely tall. So it'll be interesting to see if they can use that to their advantage. And, of course, the man that is most likely to create something for them, Akada. We've seen a few glimpses, but we haven't seen the finished product. And if he can produce that, I think the Oakleigh Cannons will have some work to do.
No changes for either side at the break. So we're about to get underway here as soon as George Katsakis makes his way back to his away technical area. Around the grounds, Damir, as we kick off the second half, do we have some final scores coming in from some of the other games?
Correct. In case you missed it, Melbourne Knights did defeat Dandenong Thunder 2-1 with their new Welsh import Webb scoring a brace. He has moved to the club from Adelaide Raiders. South Melbourne won, Eastern Lions won. So a bit of a disappointing result for South Melbourne following the 3 points last week against Heidelberg here. But a fantastic result to Eastern Lions in what was quite a difficult week for them with the passing of the former coach, Jimmy Williams. We're in the 78th minute at Green Gully Reserve, where I understand Optus Sport is recording a Football Belongs feature, and it's Hume City with a 1-0 lead thanks to a strike from former Central Coast Mariners striker Josh Bingham.
So this one goes short from Akada to Zara. Akada gets it back. It's an easy one in the end for Nick Feely.
Bentley went into halftime with a 1-0 lead against Port Melbourne thanks to a Jacob Alexander goal, but Port Melbourne equalised a couple of minutes into the second half, and it appears to have been a missed penalty that was converted on the follow-up by Chris Duggan, their import.
He's from Scotland, Chris Duggan.
I knew he was from somewhere in the UK. I wanted to be careful and not select the wrong country.
Not stereotype him. No, he's from where he sounds like, Chris Duggan, big Scottish striker. He did miss a penalty against Melbourne Knights last week, so I wonder if he ended up taking it and burying his own rebound.
And speaking of penalties, Nick Kalmar gave Dandenong City a 1-0 lead in the 18th minute, but that was pegged back by a goal in the 36th minute by Marko Bagaric of St Albans. So it's still 1-1 as the second half kicks off there. We've still got 10 minutes in both those fixtures at Green Gully Reserve and the Kingston Heath Soccer Complex. Altona, Magic and Avondale, the only game that's not on tonight, that will be played tomorrow at 3 o'clock at Paisley Park Soccer Complex. Now, Josh, I must ask you, I can understand why the clubs play on Friday night. It generally tends to be when they get the best crowds, and when the appetite for NPL football is the strongest. But do you think they do themselves a collective disservice by perhaps scheduling a bit too many games on the Friday night?
Well, it's certainly good for the binge watchers if they're multi-screening. I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying it, but I do agree. I think attendances around the league could be improved if we spaced out the games across the weekend a little more. Certainly no Sunday home game. Traditionally, South Melbourne would have the Sunday home game at Lakeside.
I think St Albans as well, at Churchill Reserve at usually 3 or 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And they generally do tend to get a pretty decent crowd at that small stadium there that they've done a few redevelopments in. Built to stand, as has Avondale, so only a few clubs really play outside or, have a preference of playing outside of this Friday night logjam. Heidelberg United is one of them. They generally tend to play their home games on a Saturday. They have also been known to play some fixtures on a Sunday. I guess with them you get the most variety. Green Gully occasionally do play, I think Green Gully in 2019 played most of their games, home games that is, on a Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m.
It's Joe Guest here, picking up the loose ball. Out to Knowles, whips it in, front post, juggled a little by Theodorides there. Wade Decker was lurking, but the Heidelberg goalkeeper did claim it. It's McAuliffe on the ball now, the right back. Theodoropoulos, who starts in almost a striking position but tends to drop deeper into midfield to combine. Reuben Way.
But speaking of sort of fixture time slots, having been here on a Sunday night at 6 p.m, why don't more teams play on a Sunday night at that time slot? Because I also remember a few years ago there was an Oakleigh Cannons South Melbourne game at that same time slot, and it was packed to the rafters, this place, easily a crowd of over 2,000, but it doesn't seem to be a very popular scheduling time for a lot of clubs, and you have to wonder, what are a lot of people doing at 6 p.m. on a Sunday?
Adrian Zara. I think one of the problems here at Jack Edwards is the western sun peeking over and blinding the spectators as Ryan Pachkowski goes into the book for that late tackle on Jackson Leno.
Well, I guess when we get into winter, that won't be much of an issue because you will have ultimately fixture starting at 6 p.m. if you do hold a Sunday night game, and it's already dark by then. But yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye on. I would like to see a few more clubs get a bit creative. Of course, there are some clubs that have a non-Friday time slot. Dandenong Thunder does tend to play on a Saturday night, although I have been told that can sometimes be to their detriment depending on what Albanian wedding is on that day.
Heidelberg United preparing for the set piece. They've got some tall timber forward here. Strickland hits it deep to the back post. Okada was there. And it came off him last, says Johnny Barrero.
And I'm not joking, Josh. I have called a few Dandenong Thunder home games over the years, and there's been quite a meagre crowd. And I have asked the Thunder official, "Hey, where is everyone? The team's either playing well or this is a really important game." And he'll just tell me that, there's a wedding on, and a good portion of our fans are at that, and ultimately it sometimes impairs their attendance.
Here's Joe Guest. Trying to get it onto that favoured left boot. He does. Didn't quite get a hold of it. Well, we've even known players to miss games on occasion. Damir with the wedding reference. It's quite a few weeks missed by Avondale's Dylan Jacoupy last season because he was overseas attending his brother's marriage.
Yeah, those Albanian weddings are... weddings in general are quite a big deal, but particularly in the Albanian community.
Yes,
but
massive event. So, we've got to schedule NPL Victoria around a lot of different competing priorities, and that's certainly one of them for the Thunder.
And I do wonder whether clubs will get more flexible as we move into the future. I know Oakleigh Cannons have from time to time changed their regular Friday night home fixtures to another night, either to accommodate another team, whether it's someone like an Avondale who I think have on a number of occasions requested for those fixtures to be played on a Sunday evening or so on. And I just think that, to maximise the potential capacity of games and also the revenue that you get from, ticket sales, the canteen and so on, and the bar, it, would be a bit better to see more clubs have variety. I know a number of people have made that point, whether it's in the forums or on Twitter and so on, and I definitely would like to see it come to fruition, because ultimately I think the clubs will benefit. And we have seen, for example, even some teams like Dandenong City, who up until 2018 played their games on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. They've now switched to a Friday night. So it seems like with each season, we're getting more and more Friday night teams, particularly when you have the likes of Kingston City and Bulleen Lions, who play their home games on Monday nights, now playing in NPL 2.
It's Hamish Miller back for Tyson Holmes. He's outstanding in that first half. His cross is closed down by Theodoropoulos. Zara steps in. And Ruben Way with a long diagonal. Chikowski has had the better of Lino in the one-on-one duel so far this evening, for the most part, aside from picking up that yellow card.
Yeah, McCaleb getting an opportunity at right back in the absence of Josh Wilkins, who we have seen on the team sheet, but he's been crossed off, so we can only assume it's injury for a player who trialled most recently in the A-League off-season with the Newcastle Jets. Wasn't successful, but he's definitely established himself as one of the best right backs in NPL Victoria since his move from Perth in 2016.
I'm going to assume it was from lifting too many weights. He's a
big boy,
built like a proverbial shithouse.
Big presence, and certainly someone that has taken gym a bit more seriously lately. I think he's definitely got arms to admire.
They miss his physical presence up and down this right flank, that's for sure. It's the left back who's come across. Ruben Way launches it. It's Holmes' header. Milan Roberts forward. Whipped back in by Ruben Way off his weaker foot. Knowles headed away, and now it's Dom Falla. We've gone to the long throw frequently, and Milan Roberts was still forward, but Eliopoulos judged the high ball well. Way going up against Pachkowski. Drives it in low for Jackson Lino! And out of nothing, the Burgers have their equaliser. And the man who came into the starting lineup to replace Sean Ellis has his goal. Jackson Lino, 1-1.
And Lino makes himself an instant hero to the Heidelberg United faithful. And it's almost a carbon copy, Josh, of the Oakleigh opener, where Fertel had a similar finish after a similar ball into the area by Knowles. This time it was Ruben Way with plenty of perseverance to get that ball into the area, not give up on it, and assist Lino there, who flicked it on, and he wasn't going to miss a third time. The former Springvale White Eagles man, who gets his side back on level terms, and as I said, the Heidelberg United fans will definitely be appreciative of his efforts following that goal.
Swung in for Thurtell. Oakleigh trying to respond immediately. Thurtell goes down. And it will be a Oakleigh free kick, but what a moment for Jackson Lino. Had a couple of chances in the first half that didn't quite fall his way. But he did superbly well to adjust his body so quickly to that whipped low ball in from Ruben Way and tuck it in with his left boot. Got Joe Guest over the set piece, as per usual. Eliopoulos was up. Couldn't get enough purchase on it.
It's an excellent ball by Joe Guest, who is one of the deadliest set-piece takers that we've seen in Victorian football in recent memory. Not only does he get himself a lot of goals from his set pieces, but he also chips in with quite a number of assists, and I guess that was ultimately quite influential in seeing him get crowned a 2019 NPL gold medalist in what was really a strange season for the Cannons, because if you recall, Josh, they had a poor start where Chris Taylor was under a lot of pressure they were fighting. I think they were, in the relegation zone and around it for the opening 10 rounds, and then really picked up with this away win at South Melbourne. I think it was a 2-0 win that was sealed by a late Marcus de Manche goal. Of course, Milos Lujic had quite a poor season by his standards, because I think he only had 3 goals and was ultimately replaced by Harry White in the starting 11. The Nick Epifano move didn't quite work out, and it was only really when White, Decker established themselves with Guest, and who was the other man?
Yeah, Ryan
Pachkowski, and I think Zoric also, although he was mainly used off the bench, ended up being quite a key contributor for them, particularly in that second half of the season, and that midfield was solidified by Matt Fascini, who was another one of Taylor's former players at South Melbourne, who made the switch across and was the more successful of his former South Melbourne contingent. And he's still a few weeks away from what we've been told, and Matthew Fascini, an excellent defensive midfielder, and I'm sure that partnership with Holmes will be one of the league's best, as Oakleigh win a free kick, much to the frustration of the Heidelberg United supporters next to us.
Yeah, lots of decisions not going Heidelberg's way at the moment, but that ball falls Heidelberg's way. Zara has Strickland in support. He chips it to the back post. It's a little overhit. Maybe took too long over that one, but Tom Strickland will try and keep it alive, and he's done beautifully. What a dummy. Theodoropoulos flying in. Okada. Move has lost a little bit of momentum now, but Dom Fowler will try and change that. It's Takeru Okada to the byline. Corner kick.
Definitely feel like Heidelberg has the ascendancy now. I think Oakleigh Cannons, a few protestations from their players as to whether the ball had actually stayed in, and I thought Strickland did quite well in the previous attacking move that ultimately proved to be unsuccessful, as Okada prepares to take this corner kick.
So Okada, feel his punch. Fowler got under it. His eyes lit up. Saw his name in lights, but he's leaning back a touch, and that one flies over the bar.
So it's definitely quite a heavy Maltese presence with this Heidelberg United 11, with Fowler, Zara, and Mikhailov all starting. Of course, Justin Mikhailov did spend a bit of time playing his club football in Malta, and I think even Adrian Zara might have gone there following his time at Perth Glory and spent a few months there prior to his return to NPL Victoria back in 2015, when he joined the Melbourne Knights initially before transferring across to Port Melbourne midway through 2015, and ultimately finding himself at the Burgers in 2017, where he's been ever since.
Encyclopedia of NPL knowledge is Damian Kulash alongside me. Oscar Dillon's ball into the channel. Matt Thurtell has support arriving now. It's one-on-one with Roberts. He tries to go by him, and the flag was up. It was a very late flag. Was it offside call there, Damir, or was the ball gone out?
I think it's an offside.
Yeah,
it was quite a late flag, I think, but if the ball had gone out, then Theodoridis would be taking that kick inside the goal kick area. I think Luka Ninkovic is about to come on. Who for? Will it be potentially Strickland or Theodoropoulos?
I think it might be Theodoropoulos. His number's coming up. This was the substitution they made in the last game. Those two players seem to be sharing minutes at the moment.
Yeah, with Theodoropoulos, I think he came into the last season under a bit of an injury cloud, and that affected the opening 5 rounds for him, as we've got Neos Cosmos, legendary photographer Con Deves, taking a few photos in front of us of the Burgers faithful. Of course, won't find too many more experienced photographers than him and Peter Saros on the touchlines of Victorian football. They've been covering it for a number of years. But, yeah, Theodoropoulos, interesting. He had a fantastic season at Northcote in 2018, despite their relegation. He joined Dandenong City ahead of the 2019 campaign when they did get promoted. I think he was a Željko Kuzman signing, but he left when Kuzman got the flick, and John Kingston halfway through the season, or just a bit before that, and he was excellent for Kingston. He almost single-handedly kept them up with his goals, but I guess he's still struggling to find his feet at Heidelberg, but he's definitely a player with plenty of potential.
Roberts back to the keeper. Not taking any chances was Chris Theodorides, as Tom Strickland's just struggling with a boot here.
The Oakleigh Cannons bench walks past us for the first time for a bit of a warm-up. Lucas Portelli has lost his starting place. He's on it, as is Marcus Demanche, the Mauritian youth international who we saw glimpses of in the 2019 NPL season. And also 16-year-old Alex Vraneshevic, who I've been told is one to watch. He's the younger brother of former South Melbourne man Slaven Vraneshevic, who was also a part of Kingston City's promotion-winning campaign back in 2016.
We'll keep an eye on that Oakleigh bench, see if we see some minutes for the teenage prodigy, but that was the old Bentley combination again. Third tell to Tyson Holmes, who couldn't quite control it, but it was actually quite a presentable opening for a moment there. See, a lot of the chances in this game are coming from high pressing and turnovers, as opposed to gradual build-up play. For both sides, really.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see which team is able to take, or if any, the most of the opportunities presented to them in the final 25 minutes or so, as Holmes finds Miller.
Knowles coughs it up. Here's Kubalay. Pachkowski. Left back today in the absence of Tom Matthews due to suspension is Joe Guess. Finds Pachkowski on the overlap. Whips it to the back post. Thurtell's lurking. Goes up with the keeper, and the whistle does go.
Definitely looked like a scene from the AFL there. The way he went up looked like that they were going up for a mark. We do have some updated scores, Josh, and I can tell you at Green Gully Soccer Complex, or Green Gully Reserve, it has finished 1-1, courtesy of a 90th minute Green Gully equalizer. Score is unknown, but we'll keep you posted. And at Kingston Heath Soccer Complex, it's 2-2. Damien Iconis gave the Bentley Greens the lead in the 75th minute, but it's Courtney Perkins, who is a new signing for the Sharks from Queensland, who has equalised in the 83rd, and it is 2-2 heading into the 90th minute there.
Well, sounds like a thriller over at Kingston Heath.
The Dandenong City St Albans game, 67 minutes, still 1-1.
Massive Friday here in NPL Victoria. Super Friday, as some are dubbing it.
Yeah, very similar to, I guess, college football in the United States, or sorry, high school football in the United States, which is traditionally played on a Friday night. Hence, Friday Night Lights.
There you go. Well, the Friday Night Lights are in the NPL Victoria today, and it's been an incredible round of games so far.
Big news from Kingston Heath Soccer Complex. Port Melbourne have looked to have won it. They've scored in the 90th minute.
Unreal.
And that will be an upset victory for the Sharks, who would have been quite disappointed with last week's events not taking advantage of the numerical advantage that they had, with the Knights being reduced to 10 men quite early on in that contest. And what a massive win that will be for them against the more heavily favoured Bentley Greens.
Well, it's been one for the underdogs so far this evening. Much more fancied sides getting pegged back for draws or even losses. No one bounces in the area. Wade Decker back doing his defensive duties. But Heidelberg are really pressing now with numbers forward in the box at every available opportunity. They smell blood here. It's Justin McAuliffe's throw. Luka Ninkovic will make his presence felt. No free kick forthcoming, and Wade Decker chips that only as far as Fetahagic. Strickland. Okada taking up a more central position. Strickland gets it back. They're queuing up at the back post here if they can switch the play, Heidelberg. Karloff. Finds Zara. Checks back. He's got numbers in the box. Can't find Okada, who was begging for the ball to be cut back there.
And that has definitely lifted the spirits of the Heidelberg fans as they launch into that famous Alexandros chant. Of course, one of the things that I'm looking forward to from this NPL season is just seeing what Olympic Village is going to be like once they're able to play games there, because thanks to the redevelopments, we're getting a more traditional football stadium up there that I guess has been brought into the 21st century after a few years where, you know, it can definitely pack in a big crowd, as we saw a number of years ago with a famous FA Cup fixture against Melbourne City that attracted over 11,000 people. But it's definitely one of the more ancient football pitches across the state, and it's interesting to see, you know, with each passing season, the redevelopments that you do see at various grounds, whether it's the aforementioned, as we said, St Albans and Avondale stands, and
Joe Knowles trying to pick out Wade Decker, can't find him.
So as Danong funded last week, they've got a corporate box now, which is good news for us in the media, because for a number of years we've actually had to compete for that position that they do have on their grandstand media pavilion, which is was also occupied by a number of corporates throughout the course of the season.
Roberts flicks the ball on. The standard of Victorian football continues to go up and up, and the professionalism they're in. Kubalay.
I think Lino was being careful there because he is on a booking, so
Yeah.
he pulled out of that one late. Would definitely not want to get himself a second yellow after the night he's having so far. With that equaliser, as Roberts calmly heads back to his goalkeeper. The one thing to know about Chris Vidoridis, not only is he one of the most reliable pair of hands in Victorian football, he's also a great penalty taker, as we've seen over a number of years now, where he has been often Heidelberg's designated penalty taker.
It's certainly a brave thing for a goalkeeper to be all the way up there in open play. This isn't during shootouts, by the way. This is genuinely in match penalties. Goalkeeper Chris Theodorides has been known to take them. Tyson Holmes onto the second ball, tries to thread it through for Wade Decker. The flag is up for offside.
It can often go wrong that goalkeepers taking penalties during the course of a game. I do recall one A-League fixture maybe about, 8 years ago, where Matt Ryan took a penalty. Might have been even against Mel Victory, and he actually missed it.
It's a mad scramble back to his goal.
Yeah.
We'll see if Heidelberg given an opportunity from the spot tonight, who steps up. Certainly Adrian Zara has been known to take penalties as well.
He's a good penalty taker, Zara, and, you know, I've been tremendously impressed with the way that he's developed as a player in terms of now becoming one of the league's best box-to-box midfielders.
Joe Guest onto his left. The angle was always tight, but there's always an excited hush that goes up when Joe Guest is close to goal from this Oakleigh Cannons fans. He's capable of the spectacular.
Here's a question for you, Josh. With just under 20 minutes plus injury time to go, which of the two coaches do you think is more satisfied with the result and also how their side is playing?
Certainly in the second half, I think Heidelberg would be more pleased. But the thing is, Oakleigh don't always need to play well to get results. They can snatch things on the counter-attack. Real sucker punch goals. They've been known to just hit you on the counter-attack when you feel like you're in the ascendancy. So it wouldn't surprise me if they pinch something. Holmes for Knowles. Also one of the fittest sides in the division, have been known to score late goals. Joe Knowles carrying the ball again. He's got past Okada. That one was blocked by Milan Roberts. Ninkovic for Heidelberg now, the substitute. Back to Fowler, who had a man on, and Knowles pinched it off his toe. He's Decker for Guest. Tries to pick out Tyson Holmes, but that's overhit. Looks like a shin pad's been discarded there.
It's been a frustrating evening for Joe Guest, who hasn't perhaps played at his best, but then again, his best is quite a high standard, and even the game that he's having so far, I think he's been one of Oakleigh's better performance. But no, it's interesting. One of the players that Heidelberg lost this off-season, who I think can really create something for them in the attacking third, is Lucas Derrick, and unfortunately, he's succumbed to another knee injury following his move to the Bentley Greens. Terrible luck for a player who I think one of the league's most promising young players, who has his second ACL injury in 3 years.
That's a heartbreaker, that one. Decker's cross. Ruben Way was flying through the air again. He's been all action this evening.
He's needed to be, and I'd say that he's probably been Heidelberg United's best. Not just the assist, I think he's been tireless, as he usually is, as Heidelberg United prepare to bring their second change.
And this is a milestone for this man. Heidelberg preparing a change. In fact, it's Alex Castillejo coming on. They've switched the numbers around from last week there.
You were thinking it was Dane Milovanovic.
I was.
Well, I think it was 14 last week. Now, in terms of progress scores, it's a big one at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex, where St. Albans have taken a 73rd minute lead with 15 minutes to go in that one. So it's a good result for the visitors, not so much for the hosts, who probably should have gotten 3 points last week, as Oakleigh prepared to take this corner through Knowles.
Too close to the goalkeeper that time.
Theodorides, if I'm not mistaken, in his first game at this ground for Heidelberg United, got himself sent off in 2016.
So that's Alex Castillejo, who's come from Western Australia. So that spells it Balcatta, amongst other big clubs there in the top flight. Guest gets no change out of the referee there, and now Okada will nod it down for Luka Ninkovic. And McAuliffe has gone forward into a much more attacking position. Zara. Bit too far for Ninkovic, but he'll keep it alive. Back to Adrian Zara.
So another per point, Ninkovic. So they've definitely recruited, as we earlier noted, heavily from interstate, and that has traditionally been a great pipeline for the Burgers. You think to the likes of Jack Petrie, who departed the club during last off-season, as did Harry Noon, another player that they recruited from interstate. Of course, Josh Wilkins and a few others. Definitely a great pipeline as Knowles takes on the new man.
Whips it in low. Got a Joe Knowles step over there. Doesn't mind skills when he takes on an opposition defender. Ninkovic felt he was tripped by Eliopoulos, but Oakleigh continues with the ball. That one's come straight back off the referee from Tyson Holmes.
So the good thing for Jonathan Brero is that went directly back to Holmes. So
didn't have to stop the play.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the worst feelings as a referee is when you halt another team's attacking opportunity.
Holmes couldn't get past Fowler, and now it's Castillejo. Dylan's header. The liner went down, hopefully. Knowles. Holmes taking the throw quickly, but Guest couldn't find Joe Knowles that time. got a bit more of a focal point up front now, Heidelberg, with Luka Ninkovic, much different striker to either Strickland or Theodoropoulos.
Yeah, I think he joined the club halfway through 2018, didn't he, from Perth, and he was sparingly used because Tom Cahill was their number 9, and he was used more so as an impact sub, Ninkovic, but he did get a few opportunities at the beginning of last season, and he did score his first league goal for the Burgers, and he was hoping that would be the start of something up until the season got disrupted after round 5. And I think, the last game that I did call was the Dandenong City Heidelberg United game, which was a 1-0 win to the Burgers thanks to a Wilkins goal.
Ninkovic nodding it down for Zara. Pumped into the channel for Okada to chase, but Oscar Dillon is there on the cover. Taken quickly from the throw. And Okada gets it back from Zara. Running at Pachkowski. Whoops it in low. It's blocked by Kubale. Zara's cross is wayward, to say the least. Came off the wrong side of his foot.
Yeah, not his best moment of the night, Zara. Be interesting to see when Oakleigh go to their bench, because that's one thing that I do remember from their 2019 campaign, is that Chris Taylor was one of the most conservative coaches when it came to actually utilising his bench. A lot of times they'd often wait until the 90th minute to throw on Milos Lujic as more of a time-wasting sub, and a few others. It was really quite odd that he seemed to be quite happy most of the time with his team for 80, 85 minutes before bringing on that first change late on, potentially to just waste time.
He's an old-school coach. I mean, it doesn't like to change a good thing.
And I think their first win that campaign actually came in round 6-2 at home against Heidelberg United.
The switch from Guest is intercepted by Jackson Lino. Okada. Castillejo under pressure from Thurtell. Well, the Heidelberg fans are absolutely incensed there, as the throw has gone Oakleigh's way. And we've got a player down injured now on the far side. He's in fact Adrian Zara, who's back up on his feet. And now it's Milan Roberts who's struggling with cramp. Oh, a shake of the head from Milan Roberts there. He's not wanting to continue for much longer.
You're about to see Dane Milovanovic come on, because he can definitely deputise at centre-back. He's quite a versatile player who can play a number of positions, including at the heart of the defence.
And this is the moment for the milestone man. I believe this is his 100th appearance in the Victorian top flight across quite an impressive array of clubs. Bringing up the big 1-0-0, Dane Milovanovic, when this change is made. Decker for Knowles. Now Guest. Saved at his near post by Theodorides, and Milan Roberts, who's really struggling now. Pretty heroic clearance in the circumstances.
Now, Josh, as most of us are aware, we've had a Kual firing in the A-League in former Goulburn Valley Suns striker Alu. There's a Kual who's made himself a hero for Port Melbourne tonight, and that is John Kual, who has scored winner in the 92nd minute. So
unreal. Well, Johnny Kual is being used as an impact sub for Port Melbourne this season, and he certainly made the impact. And I'm sure we had a backflip as well after that one. So
there's a 12-man on the pitch now, as Roberts hasn't gone off yet. Now he is.
There we go. substitution eventually made for the injured Roberts. Tyson Holmes on the ball now. Loses out to Lino. Was clipped. And a warm round of applause for the injured Marlon Roberts as he makes his way back to the bench. Seems to be a groin injury.
And that is, I guess, one of the other interesting sort of talking points for NPL Victoria this season is that unlike the A-League and a lot of leagues that we've seen in Europe, they're sticking to the traditional 3 subs rule, that you can only make 3 substitutions. There won't be 3 installments of substitutions of up to 5 players.
Almost
as we've
a killer
seen in the
goal
A-League.
from Guest there. Yep. Despite the long break that some of these Victorian players have had between competitive football, it's an old school league. And 3 subs is the way they're going to do it. Holmes. Chips it into the channel. Wade Decker, but it was Feta Hagic who was across to cover Ruben Way on a rare occasion where he wasn't making the challenge himself, the Heidelberg captain. He had his centre back well positioned. And that's Hamish Miller, who's been caught late by McAuliffe.
Of course, Hamish Miller, not the only Miller in action tonight, in terms of his brother Matt, featuring for the Newcastle Jets, who went down 2-1 to Adelaide United at Cooper Stadium. There's debut goals for both Louis Dorigo and Connor O'Toole in the A-League, and a winner coming from debut of Craig Goodwin on his return on his home return, that is, for the Reds.
It'll be the left foot of Pachkowski this time. Joe Guest making his way into the area instead. It's a good delivery too. Thurtell was in there. Eliopoulos couldn't make contact either, and it flashes agonisingly across goal.
It's a terrific ball into the area by Pachkowski, and ultimately it wasn't to be. That's really the second point-blank opportunity that Oakleigh have had of a set piece.
As that clearance from Ryan Pachkowski nearly took out your commentary team, but...
Look, if that had hit me, I would have had trouble because I'm standing right next to the ladder. With stills, and we might have potentially had an OH&S disaster here, but thankfully it wasn't to be. I think I did react quite fast to it, so even if it was coming straight towards me, I might have actually evaded it.
Positively cat-like from Damir Kulash. Play goes on. Jackson Lino. The goal scorer for Heidelberg, of course. Fowler's switch headed away by Hamish Miller. Knowles. It's been outstanding this evening. And that's an outstanding ball. Finds Joe Guest. Nutmegs his opponent. Brought down another dangerous set piece for the Oakleigh Cannons.
Exactly right, Josh. And let's see whether it'll be third time lucky for the Oakleigh Cannons.
Well, Ryan Pachkowski wants this, and I don't blame him after the ball he put in last time. That really should have been converted.
It was a terrific ball, and Oakleigh potentially sensing a bit of blood here late. Tale of 2 benches. Heidelberg have brought on all 3 of their subs. Oakleigh yet to use a sub.
Free header, and Decker glances wide. What a chance. What a chance.
I'm amazed that Heidelberg left Decker that open. He's definitely had a few metres of space, clear space around him, and ultimately wasn't able to get the connection on the header that would have propelled it towards goal. Instead, it went away from it, and Fioretti and the Heidelberg contingent are very relieved after that one. And I mean, even when you look at someone like Milovanovic, I know he's come on for an injured Roberts, but he himself has had a torrid injury history, Milovanovic, and I guess, the years are catching up to him, so hopefully he can have a fit and free 2021 because he's definitely had a lot of hard luck over the years.
Holmes trying to play the killer ball. Decker, well, that asked a lot of him, but I think he's still in his own head after that miss where Decker. He's been so reliable late in games for the Oakleigh Cannons. Scored a lot of dramatic winners for them when they've really, really needed him, especially in the first half of 2019 where they were struggling so badly. He came up trumps for them before they really stumbled on a more sustainable winning formula.
And another player who got better as the season went along, his partnership with White and also the combination that he formed with Guest was pivotal to Oakleigh being one game away from making the grand final, as they were back in 2018 when, of course, Heidelberg United knocked them out on penalties at Olympic Village and ultimately went on to win. Get some, I guess you could say, redemption after losing.
Jackson Leno. Well, that was a pass.
It's gone out.
And it's out of play.
Yeah.
McAuliffe can't believe it.
Heidelberg United made the grand final in 2017 after being first on the ladder after 26 rounds, only to lose to the Bentley Greens in the grand final at Lakeside Stadium before going one better the following year and beating Avondale at Amy Park 2-1. From memory, Andrew Katanos put his name up in Heidelberg folklore with a fantastic goal that day, which proved to be the winner.
Just under a minute left of regulation time here. Joe Knowles, Thurtell, Holmes. Didn't catch it as he might have liked.
He can do better, Holmes, and he knows it. Just hasn't been that night when Oakleigh have made the most of the opportunities presented to them, particularly from the set piece. But even you've seen also Guest, I guess, have a half a chance on the half volley not too long ago, that where he was off balance and didn't quite have the right angle. And a few more in the first half.
Well, this game has really come in waves. The two sides have traded periods of dominance. It seems like 15 minutes. Oakleigh are by far the better team, and then Heidelberg do their thing as 4 minutes goes up on the fourth officials board for added time, a minimum of 4 minutes, of course. Knowles. So energetic, Knowles. He's too quick for Dane Milovanovic in his 100th top flight appearance here in Victoria. And Holmes was angling for a second yellow card for that.
Barrera turned his back to it, the referee. Now, it's a bit hard to tell whether he would have taken action and given out a second yellow card had he seen it, because he generally does tend to be a referee who is quite conciliatory, and I guess, he is a barrister by trade, so he can adapt a number of different dispute resolution styles to suit the needs, and he will have a talk to the fourth official, Alexander Lieber here. He's told him that there was a push, but I don't think that they'll take further action against Milovanovic. I think that as long as the push didn't hit Holmes in the face, although it was getting quite close to the neck area, wasn't it?
It might be the height difference between the two players,
which has been taken into consideration there potentially, as Pachkowski prepares to curl this one in.
Sinfeliopoulos hooked away by Fetahagic. And another 2.5 minutes we'll have here to lay siege on the Heidelberg goal. Will the Oakleigh Cannons, the home side, in the ascendancy? Hamish Miller's cross is overhit. Castillejo got a touch. Pachkowski dished it wide for Joe Guest, who wins the corner.
2 minutes remaining.
Time ticking away for the Oakleigh Cannons, but they have been so threatening off set pieces this evening. Will there be a sting in the tail? Everyone forward by Hamish Miller. It's Joe Knowles with the corner. In-swinger to the back post. Big claim by Chris Theodorides there. Very proactive to come off his line and grab that one. And it restarts through Ruben Way. Anywhere will do, really. I think Heidelberg are just waiting for the final whistle now. They seem to have run out of steam. Thurtell's flick. Another foul.
Fethagic this time, who, from memory, is not on the booking, so...
No, I think he is on the booking.
Oh,
he was one down a slide tackle in the first
half. That's right. That was a debatable one where I think you went to me to ask my thoughts on that one. Yeah, you're right.
So it was a little bit of a risky one for him, but innocuous enough, and we'll hopefully finish this game with 22 men on the field. Pachkowski's free kick. Eliopoulos was in there. They wanted a corner, but they won't get one. And time ticking away. We might end in a stalemate here after a really exciting, spirited game.
And you'd say George Katsakis the happier of the two managers?
With the result, certainly. They've had to withstand a barrage in the last 25 minutes or so here. But prior to that, in the early period in the second half, Heidelberg strung together some really positive play. So certainly plenty of positives for both sides to take. Not over yet, though. We've had some stoppages in stoppage time, so it's at the discretion of the referee now. Feely needs to get this forward and quickly. It's over the top. Wade Decker goes down. No free kick. Barrero waved it off immediately.
I mean, he looked to have been clipped, but I'm not sure if it was intentional. Like, it might have just been a clash of legs, and that Decker initiated the contact and ultimately fell down. But again, I'd need a replay to properly determine.
Something the referee doesn't get. Here's Joe Guest. Last chance saloon here. Into the back post. Oscar Dillon was up. The flag came later, and it wouldn't have counted. Full time at Jack Edwards Reserve. An end-to-end clash. Oakleigh Cannons will be the more disappointed of the two teams, failing to make the most of their late opportunities. But it finishes Oakleigh Cannons 1, Heidelberg United 1.
The two coaches exchange pleasantries.
Two of the really old hands at NPL Victoria, two of the most distinguished and experienced managers who've...
Two recently retired central defenders as assistant coaches in Ryan McGuffey and Stephen Pace also shaking hands. So they're part of the new crop of coaches that I'm sure you'll see with senior gigs potentially in years to come. But for now, Katsakis and Taylor, two of the very best. And look, I guess both sides would be, disappointed to have 1 point from possible 6 to open the season. Neither of them would have had those expectations coming into the campaign, but it is what it is. I guess Heidelberg would perhaps be the happier of the two, given the fact that they've got the likes of Wilkins and Boschnack out and a number of new signings to accommodate. And, the positive for them is Lino, I thought, had an excellent game. Capped off with the goal. Akata, I think they need to do a bit better in terms of just unlocking the potential that he's got, because I think if he gets going, they're going to be a force like they have been in previous seasons. And for Oakleigh, Fort Knowles did really well with the assist. We didn't see too much of him outside of that. Guest and Pachkowski made a few great set-piece deliveries which weren't converted. Fertel definitely made a presence of himself without adding the second lethal goal, which would have gotten all 3 points for the Cannons. But I think when it comes to the end of the campaign, it wouldn't surprise me if both these teams are not only in finals contention, but also competing for league honours.
Well, both teams yet to find their first win, but I'm sure we'll see them before long finding the kind of form that will propel them into finals contention. That's all from us tonight. Thank you for watching along on the NPL Victoria Facebook Live and YouTube streams. I've been Josh Parrish alongside Damir Kulash. It finishes Oakleigh Cannons 1, Heidelberg United 1. Good night and thank you for watching.